and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I go see my folks and they live at Taco Boulevard, just right across from Thunder Mountain
Okay, you're
area.
live.
Right on. Hey, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us in this conversation we're already having here. Thank you. My name is Gene Tagaban. We're coming with you from the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour. Thank you again for joining us. We are on week 28 or 29 with 170, 180 programs or something. You know, we're not even really sure yet. You know, and we started these power hours just as our response to the pandemic that's going on, and just to bring that healing and wellness, keeping our ancestral wisdom alive, and just to be a source of healing, you know, for the people. We really thought we were going to go for like maybe two months or so, but here we are, and I think we're going to be continuing on for quite some time into the next year. And even if everything does open up with the Native Wellness Institute, this is going to be part of our regular programming, just to bring you these programs to you wherever you're at. And we got people from all over urban, out there in the reservations, you know, and rural areas, all the way up to Alaska. So welcome, 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 everyone. And this program here is sponsored by the Urban Indian Health Institute, by the Seattle Indian Health Board. And my hands go up to them. Thank you so much. And so today, we have a good friend of mine, you know, an awesome guest, Aiden Key. You know, just the part I'm going to share with about Aiden. Aiden and I, we went to school together. We grew up together in Juneau, Alaska. And were we in grade school together in Glacier Valley?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Glacier Valley, from grade school all the way to junior high and high school, and over the years we've just known each other, and then we bumped into each other back in Bellingham like so many more years ago, you know, and such, you know, and so Aiden's twin brother Brenda too, you know, I don't know if she's watching, but if she's watching, right on, Brenda, it's good to have you out there. And if you want to get on, Brenda, talk to Kristen and have her send you the link and get on, you know. And so that's a little bit of how long we've known each other for this time, you know, and yeah, just I see we're both getting a little grayer here, and as we go on, you know, as time goes on. But another thing too, I wanted to talk to you about too, Aiden, is like the transformations that have happened, and plus the work that you're doing and who you are. Can you just share with us, introduce yourself, you know, and share with us a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say and who you are, because that's a harder question, I think, to contemplate that with all the swirling experiences that I've walked through in my life. But let's see. Yeah, my name's Aiden. I run an organization that helps support families with transgender and gender diverse kids who are exploring their gender in some way. Nobody knows quite what direction they're heading. Organization to help offer support specifically to those parents and the adults in their lives who may have very little understanding of gender diversity and what that means. And they almost exclusively show up with a lot of anxiousness and fear about their children's lives and how they themselves are going to manage it. Gosh, I got to this work from my own personal journey. I'm not a parent.
See my folks, and they live at.
I am somebody that landed on the planet right with my identical twin sister as a girl, and did my best to navigate that, but was pretty mystified from an early age. Interestingly, it ties in with the question that a lot of people ask me, which is, hey, you know, when did you know that you were not a girl, that you were not a woman? And, you know, I used to answer that as best as I could. Well, you know, I I don't know, this situation, this experience, whatever, but I realized it wasn't the right question from them. The question is better framed as when did I discover that people didn't really see me for the way I saw myself? And that
Mm.
is practically as young as I can remember. I am very sure my sister recognized my differences. I recognized hers. You know, it's an interesting thing to be a twin on the planet. There's an assumption that we are exactly alike, and yet we recognized our differences from each other and our similarities, and had no problem embracing each other with respect to all those things. Um, but they really started, those differences started being noticeable to other people, especially as we got older. Uh, so, you know, fast forward a lot of years, I, yeah, lots, how do you package up a longer story in a soundbite? Let's just say that in my early years of taking a look at gender, I very much remember at 9 years old seeing this family. It was a husband and wife, and they had 2 young kids. And I realized that society is expecting me to, when I grow up, that I will get married, that I will have children, that I will perhaps attend even the same church. Um, and I realized that I want to be married. Yes, I would like to have a family, and I just cannot be that mom and that wife. And I also, at the same time, recognized my affinity for dad and husband, and knew that I could not open my mouth one iota about that thought. I didn't even feel like I could talk to my sister about it, or my mother, or friends, or anything. And even if I felt like I could, why would I bother? It was just a fantasy. It was impossible. I may as well wish to be a dragon flying around a
Mm.
volcano. Um, and so, you know, what does a little 9-year-old do with that? I also had been around on the planet enough to know that whatever I was thinking, whatever I was feeling, who I felt myself to be, that others would view that as being wrong. And you know, what does that mean? How do I not then, how do I look at my differences and accept them when others might consider it morally wrong, or, you know, any number of things. So I just, in that time of despair, I just figured, well, I got to make the best of my life and do what I can. And so that's what I did. And I didn't do very well at all. Um, as puberty hit, that was a really devastating time. I felt like my body was just completely going on its own track, without my consent, without any sort of connection to that. With those changes in life and growing older and becoming a teen and all of that, you know, you have to think about relationships and crushes and dating and all of that. That was not working for me either. I wanted to do anything and everything I could to deflect the attention of boys. Their interest in me, or their interest in my body, was incomprehensible to me. And I don't know what to say about all of that, except to say, I can't believe I navigated those years with that experience, uh, and survived, I guess, basically.
Mhm.
So, you know, one of the ways to survive is to drink a lot of alcohol. So, you know, that plus, you know, whatever drugs I could find along the way. I did spend a significant amount of time doing that. Um, what was interesting in that is that that didn't feel like me either. And so, knowing I was going to have a moment of reckoning on that someday too. You can't do this your whole life. You know, you'll destroy the years that you have, and you could very well die. I was already losing friendships because of it. Any number of hardships that come with addiction. So ultimately, I just knew I had to stop. and take a look. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian environment. It's not an environment that I found very embracing of the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about. I found many of them to be warm and loving people, but I also felt like their warmth and love would only go so far, and that I'd already gone past that. So while I'm reckoning with alcohol, I'm also reckoning with my faith, uh, and not knowing what to do about it. Except
Mhm.
what do? You take a step at a time, and I've come quite a long way. I'm really proud of that journey. It's been bumpy, but it's led me to this moment today where I have so many wonderful opportunities to talk with people, and not share my brilliance, but just share my experience, my
Share your
fears,
story.
sharing what I know, sharing what I don't know, and that collaborative process of engaging with others. I've discovered a lot of things that um, really matter. So that's, I mean, is that a good enough nutshell?
That's a good start, man. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, like as a little 9-year old, just what was going on, and we're starting to realize that, and as you age and grow, and especially in Juneau, man. I mean, uh, I know what that was like. I was right there too, with the alcohol and the drugs, and
Hey, Gene, I will say one thing that I did really appreciate about Juneau is that I felt like our community allowed for greater
yeah.
gender expression. At least I don't know how much it would have been for feminine expression in boys, but for a more masculine expression in girls, I felt like I had a little more room than in some other communities. And despite my mom not knowing really anything about gender differences or what transgender might mean or anything, she still was celebratory of who I was and what I did in the world. And
Mhm.
that was the most significant uh, thread that I hung on to, even in those hard times.
Yeah. So family. I mean, your mom, your sister,
Hmm.
and just that
Yeah,
support system,
yeah.
and encourage that support system, for everybody. We all need that support system. We all need that help. you know so how old were you when it came to, okay, the drinking, the drugs, and then it just like, I've got to I've I got
Yeah.
to do this.
I think I was about 16 years old. My family had moved away for a few years, and those were really hard years. I wanted to be back home. Uh, and we did eventually move back. I think it was my sophomore year of high school. And one of the first situations that happened is that some of those friends that I wanted to reconnect with, I found out that they had gotten together over the weekend, celebrated someone's birthday, and that my sister and I weren't included. And I found that out. It was really painful. And I did ask one of the one of my friends, and she said, "Well, we'd be drinking, and we knew that you didn't drink, and so." And I said, "Well, that would have been okay. I'd have been comfortable with that." And she said, "Well, we wouldn't have been comfortable."
Hmm.
And that was a moment, I will never forget it. I will never forget where I was standing in the school, in the hallway, who I was talking to, everything. I will never forget it because I just said, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not, after being away, feeling that disconnect from faith community, being away from my friends, and my social community, being away from the beauty that Juneau offers. I'm not coming home just to be excluded because I won't take a drink.
Hmm.
And that was the start. I dove hard. I dove hard.
Right on. Right on. um so what is transgender? And oftentimes I hear trans, gender identity, sexual orientation. you know what is that? And then,
Yeah. Uh, Well, sometimes the easiest way to describe what something is to describe what it isn't, maybe. uh,
Okay.
so I think the easiest way for me to describe my gender identity is that it just is something, my internal sense of gender is different than what people expect it to be. So people expect if you are born female, you're born male, and your body parts match that maleness or femaleness, then your gender identity, your internal gender should match that as well. Mine doesn't. Mine didn't.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the simplest way. Many people of different perspectives and professions will describe it in any number of ways. The easiest way for me to describe it is to use the language that children use. And one family in particular, this child's mother said, you know, the moment I really woke up was when my kid came to me at 7 years old, put his hands on his hips and said, Mom, when are you going to understand? I may have the body of a girl, but I have the heart and mind of a boy. You know, that is just a really straightforward way to describe it. What I love about today is that kids are more and more finding their voices to describe themselves,
Mhm.
and that it's not just I'm not a girl, I'm a boy, or vice versa. It's, you know what, neither gender is working for me, or I feel myself to be both genders, or third, fourth, fifth, sixth gender. Sometimes my gender is moving and it's fluid, and I feel differently. I can feel differently day to day. I love that expansiveness. And one of the things that I've noticed in my work, because so much of my work is with older generations who are parents and grandparents, the younger generations understand this concept of an internal sense of gender. And they know that they are the ones that get to describe that that's their truth, really. And they absolutely expect others to hear that, recognize that, accept that. But they don't recognize uh, so many of the restrictions that can be in place for somebody like me, my age. Like, no, gender is male or female. There's a line.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid if we try to define that line. Um, so there's a real generational expansion going on that I find really joyous. Uh, and if we think about gender identity as being our own sense of our own gender, then if you want to know how many gender identifications there are, you just have to add up the number of people on the planet and you've got your answer. So, and then to the other part of your question, well, our gender identity exists from birth. You know, we're living it, we're
Yeah.
breathing it. Do we have language for it? Maybe not. Do we have acknowledgement for it? Maybe not. Do we have a place of belonging in our community because of it? Maybe not. But nevertheless, it's all happening prior to our sexuality, our sexual orientation exploration. Um, and, you know, that, what do I want to say about that? In my work, I have to really pull those apart for people, which is helpful to be able to then look at these children and honor their experiences and their journeys. But for us as adults, they just come right back, almost like magnets. So
Yeah.
our who we're drawn to romantically or sexually, that's part of our equation. And the intersections of our gender identity are part of that. But if I can pull them apart for a second and say, hey, let's take a look, and then we bring them back, then we're much more clear on what we're talking about. We can get clarity that being transgender is not some type of sexual orientation, that it's not some type of sexual perversion.
Mhm.
It's not some type of mental illness, you know, all of the things that can be packaged up with that. And then we can also recognize that we can talk to children
Yeah.
about gender differences. they're busy experiencing it every day. They're busy being told what they can or can't do because they're a boy, because they're a girl. No, put that down. No, you can't do that. No, no, no. They're all feeling pain for those restrictions. And if we can recognize that, you know, it's a continuum of conversation, gender identity, the way we express our gender also are things we do from the earliest ages possible. And we can be very fluid in that.
Mhm.
You know, you can, many parents that I chat with, they're like, oh, I saw no signs. You know, my child wore dresses. She was the most feminine girl. She was this and that. How can she say she's a boy? Well, let's take a look at that, you know? Anyway,
Yeah.
so lots to say there, but yeah.
I mean, it's, I mean, now these younger generations, but they do have a language to refer to be able to express themselves now, as opposed to our generation or even older. It was like, just like, like what? You know, and so many belief systems and value systems are in there. You know, you talked about earlier, you know, and this organized corporate religion that's out there too. You know, that's interwoven into everything, and belief systems, and you know, in school and everything as well too. You know, and I'm thinking about like these little kids, like the way you described it is like, you know, it's like here's your physical being, and then your spirit is something else, and your spirit is like talking and saying, you know, it's like, but no, this is really who I am. But how do I? But as a little spirit and a spirit, how do I describe that?
Right.
How do I explain it? And who's going to listen?
Right.
Who's going to listen to it? You know, and you know, and as you, yeah, it's really interesting, man. Very interesting.
But who doesn't know that experience?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Right.
exactly.
Right. We have our
I mean,
packaging.
I mean, it's like myself. I mean, it's like I'm native, man, and this your whole colonization that's going on out there. It's like wanting, you know, it's like my ancestors. They wanted my ancestors to be white, you know, and that all grew over here. And part of me is like, I even went to church for a while. And I was like, going, okay, let's see how this works. And part of me is going, no, this is not me, man. This isn't me, you know. And you know, I'm native, I'm indigenous, and you know, and so I'm still discovering myself. Who, you know, what does that mean? To re-indigenize myself, be this a native man, and finding, you know, and being that. And yeah, like I said, who isn't, you know, struggling with that? Especially, I mean, look at what the heck's going on in this country. Holy,
Right.
yeah, you know,
Well, and what a crazy, wild journey it's been um to shift my packaging so other people see something that helps communicate my gender identity. And number one, know that they still don't see it. Because my internal sense of my gender is a lot more fluid. You know, I've never felt like a girl or a woman, and you know, I never had an opportunity to feel like a boy. And the world of maleness and manness specifically is a mystery to me. Still, even, you know, 23 years in, I'm still feeling my way. And so, you know, we've got the limitations of our packaging, and
yeah,
I've got whiteness going on, and holy moly, the way the world engages with me now compared to when the whiteness was with female, so radically different.
wow,
Really
yeah,
shocking. My wife and partner, you've met Kristen, when she got together with me, she had previously partnered with women, and so had that experience. But she said, wow, you know, just walking through the world, it's like this wind tunnel of white heterosexual privilege. It was pretty shocking to both of us, to move through the world and just feel like any and all doors might open. So that's part of my experience now. it shifts pretty significantly pretty early on, because when I meet somebody, we exchange names. Usually the question that comes is, like, well, what do you do for work, Aiden? I take a deep breath, like, well,
Let me tell you.
there's that. And I do, and depending on the person, well, it doesn't matter on the person. I share my work. It could be sitting next to somebody on an airplane. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a 5-hour flight here, and this construction foreman just asked me what I do for work. This is going to be a long, long, possibly very uncomfortable 5 hours. But I just dig in, because you know what? I didn't ask the question, they asked it. So here it comes. And, oh, well, how'd you get into that work? Once they, recover from particular shock, they might assume I have a transgender child. And then I just share my journey.
Yeah.
And I do that everywhere I go, because that's part of my way to change the world, person by person by person.
Your purpose. Yeah, right on. I mean, and you just, I mean, you do it so well, because that's, gosh, that's who you are. That's who you are. I mean, it's like being even as native, people ask me what the work that I do. Shoot, to be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure it out. And just tell people about, being native, ancestral wisdom, historical traumas, healing, and these are just terms that just aren't mainstream. They're getting to be more mainstream, healing and these things, but that construction worker, that fisherman that's sitting next to me, and start talking to them and talk about masculinity, healthy masculinity. I mean, still dealing with that right now.
Right.
And what is that? And what's that look like? And how do we define that? And you being able to walk in both worlds too, and seeing that. I mean, I never really thought about that too, and in your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, man.
I have an interesting example that happened not too long ago, maybe a year ago. I was in, I don't remember where I was. I think I was in Wisconsin, doing some work with a school district there. And I was done with my work. I had checked out of the hotel, had a little bit of time to kill before going to the airport. So I'm in the hotel lobby and I'm working on my computer. I had myself kind of tucked away at a little cubicle area that they had. And after a while, I was just like, wow, I need to get up, stretch. I walked over to another table, so I could work on my computer and stand at the same time. And as I moved over there, over to my right, there's two men sitting there conversing about something. There's a group of men, 4 or 5 men that have some football game on, turned up really loud, and therefore they're also talking very loudly over the game. And then there's another guy over here, whatever. So it's all men. And I just had this visceral reaction of, okay, well, here it comes, which is my mindset from over 20 years ago. A woman alone at a hotel with a group of men all around. Any moment now, one of them or a number of them might come up and start talking, and whether they have wedding rings on or not, are looking for some type of engagement. Oh, what are you doing here? Are you all alone? Do you have a boyfriend? Whatever it might be. It's been 20 years, over 20 years since I had that type of interaction. And yet 22 years later, I moved from one chair to another table, and the brain's still there. Like,
Yeah.
okay, here it comes, except, it didn't. And one might think that the first feeling that would come about was relief. And there was some relief in there, but boy, what grief and rage were with that feeling of relief. The complete and utter unfairness that because I look a little bit different now, that means I get a reprieve from the constant onslaught of unwanted sexual attention, invasive attention, uninvited attention. So that was that was pretty surprising to, you know, again, 20 something years later, to have that show up just like it was yesterday.
Wow. You know, you said that grief and rage that came up, you know, and I'm sure it's come up often, you know, on your journey and stuff. When that comes up, what do you do? How do you deal with that, or acknowledge it, or what's your process?
Um, I share it. I share it with other people. I want them to see that. It's the only thing I really have to share is a experience and perspective of my path. And if it's helpful to others, if I can give language to that, it might highlight something that someone else has never thought about. It might give other trans people freedom to share some of their own thoughts that they might not otherwise feel confident to do. Because my words come out of a face that looks like this, and whatever people decide about this white, presumed heterosexual, presumed middle class, presumed educated male perspective, they might hear it in a way that they would not have heard it from my former self back in the day, presenting as female, and whatever they decided about who that person was. So, you know, that's what I do. I want to understand it. And plus, you know, there's a lot of things too in which we feel rage. The challenge really is how do you engage with those feelings, honor them, but not let them overtake you. So
Or
rage,
you get lost in it, and you know, and here comes the alcohol, here comes the drugs, and you know, and possibly self-destruction, suicide. You know, it can overcome.
you know, in the let's see, yeah, I'll say this, sure, why not? In some of the LGBTQ communities that I've engaged in, there's a real, of course, there's a lot of rage, because there's been a lot of trauma, a lot of hardship, a lot of damage that has occurred. But I've watched that rage really fester in a way that hurts individuals, but also hurts community. And so I'm not talking to those communities when I'm doing my work. I'm talking to the military town in North Dakota. I'm talking to the 75% Republican school district in rural Colorado. You know, I'm going to these places, and am I going to show up and give them that rage? If I do, their listening turns off. They will not hear what comes out of my mouth. And so instead, I just say, you know what? Spirit and the universe, please give me the words. Please help me keep my heart open and help them see that it's open. Let me honor even the most, what I might consider the most ridiculous questions I've ever encountered. I can unload about that later, but in that moment, what's in that question? What of that person's really kind of outrageous example that they might bring up? What of that has some truth that resonates with everyone else in the room? If I dismiss that person, I don't necessarily realize I could be dismissing everyone in the room. So, you know, that's when I think about what is the work that I do in the world. Yeah, I talk about gender, but really what I'm trying to do is say, hey, can we engage with each other and recognize we might be stepping into something that's new for us. It's got some layers, it's got complexity. You start peeling away those layers and it just, man, it gets deeper and deeper.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do it with love. You know, I'm not part of the church community that I was once upon a time, but there are some things that were valuable to me as a child And I thought, I just want to be the best person that I can. And I want to come from a place of love and compassion. How do I do that? How do I show that? And, you know, like you said, the state of our country, the state of the world, what do we need more than that right
Yeah.
now? I just don't know what we need more.
Brother, that's, thank you. Perfect. It's like that place of compassion and that love, and knowing, yeah, about healing. That's what the Native Wellness Institute, that's what it's about. How can we step into the community and heal? Even like our elders, you see these elders, they walk into a room and just with their presence, they change the space.
Mhm.
Just with their presence, they change the space. And those elders that exude that wisdom, that honor, that connection, and so yeah, I mean, because we need that. Gosh, we need that, and um, shoot, man. So I wish I was right there with you in that room right now, talking to you, man. I just sitting there with that cup of coffee or tea or whatever, and just talking and being with you, because I missed that, especially those uh, human beings, those human beings,
Right.
you know.
Right. Well,
So
you've come and done your work at our conference. I don't even know how many years, many years, sometimes with the kids, sometimes with the teens, sometimes with the adults, sometimes with all of them. And it all lands so well, because it really is about what's our story, and our
exactly,
story has value and um,
yeah, that's
yeah.
it. What's our story? It's like, um, that conference that we're talking about. It's those of you who don't know, it's called Gender Odyssey, and you can find it at www.genderodyssey.org and take a look at that. Can you tell us a little bit more about Gender Odyssey, Aiden?
Yeah, well, we were just getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary, and
I know I was going to be there. I was looking forward to it, man.
I
There's
know,
some stuff I want. There was some stuff I really wanted to do.
I know, I know. So let's just say that when I don't even know, age 32, 33, I knew that this word transgender and me had to start talking to each other. And it was not, it felt similar to that despair I felt at 9 years old. This was a different type of despair. It was like, oh, the thing that was impossible to me at 9 is possible now. I understand that it's possible to move through a gender transition and uh, to be presenting in the way that was more suited to who I felt myself to be. But by then, I don't want to be one of those people. One of those people that people ridicule or physically attack or even sexually assault. I don't want to be one of those people that can't get a job because of who they are, is homeless because of who they are, that's assumed to be mentally ill. I don't want to be that person that people don't think is a safe person to be around children. All of the things that show up that people have, trappings that people have determined or decided about who transgender people are. And so, if I could have turned it off, I would have. But nevertheless, stepping in. So Gender Odyssey was part of my stepping in, that I need to talk to more people. I asked a lot of questions of people, the 5 people that I knew. And I just wanted more. And I wanted people who had not just a few months of traveling a similar path, but years or decades. So that conference has really grown quite a bit since then. And I see Jolene has popped a question in there.
Yeah, there's a question. I just want to really quick on that with the Gender Odyssey, that participating, and thank you for asking me for the first time, but in my participation in that conference, it has helped me grow as a human being, truly, to be part of that and to be around that community, and the people and stuff, it's like, and when Ruby and I go there, it's like, it's one of our favorite things. It's like, we look forward to it. Let's go. We can't wait to get there just to see and experience the people and learn and grow. And then I've run into other people who I run into that there. I'm going, wow, people I know.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, what are you doing here? And they go, gee, what are you doing here? And that surprise. And they'll like go, and they'll say, well, I have a daughter who's exploring her gender. We even had a school board who was running to superintendent at school board, Erin Jones, who I saw there. And I said, Erin, it's good to see you. Why are you here? She goes, because I need to learn about this. I need to learn about this. These are kids are going through this. I need to learn about this. That's why I'm here. And I was like, oh, right on, Erin, And so it's like, and just myself, I've just grown so much from that, and this year I was invited to go back and do some things, and I was really disappointed, but there'll be another time. There'll be another time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and my wife has even had a friend that attended just because he heard about it and wanted, peripherally just thought, oh, this will be interesting. I can visit my friends and go to this conference. And he sat in on workshops and he says, the questions that people are exploring, these are my questions. Who am I in the world? What kind of man am I? How do other people perceive me? Do those match up? Do I need them to match up? How do I be the kind of man that I want to be in the world rather than what I feel is forced upon me? So, I think there's room for, or at least we strive to make room for those conversations too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to that question that Jolene asked. Is like, how do you talk to the LGBT, about the LGBTQ community to Republicans? I think that's what the question was.
Yeah. Well, short answer is I assume that they don't have as much resistance or hatred as I could assume that they do. I just moved to a different place, and I have to say that one of the things that really helped me was it's no mystery in the LGBTQ community that fundamentalist Christians are not their friends. The harm that has been done in the name of Christianity is brutal, and for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. So, but I was in that community and I met people that that I know, that cared about me as a child, that showed me love to me personally and to my family. It was a tight community, and there's a lot of value to having a tight community. I found that, anyway, there's lots to say about that. So when I step into those rooms that I know are predominantly Republican, I think about those people. It doesn't matter if they would accept me today or not. They might not. And too bad for them. If you want to see me push back a little bit, it's like, if you can't come along the journey and embrace your faith that you taught me, well, guess what? I'm still doing it. And I still do the work of God or spirit or higher power or, whatever we want to describe it. I still do that. So I come in and I say this to myself, these are good people. They're loving, they care for their children. They care for their neighbors, their community members. They care for their children. They're just as afraid of this topic as anyone else. One of the things that the Republican, if I'm going to generalize, that Republicans will do more so than those who are left-leaning, is they put that shit on the table. What about this? And what about that? We're talking about this trans kid that's 9 years old, but what about the safety of all the other girls? How about that? Like, okay, well, thanks for bringing that up. Let's dig in. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that as we move through that, if you're thinking about one trans girl being a danger to 99 other girls, you can instruct 99 other girls to just sit on that kid. I mean, very literally, you know, if you're worried about the danger that a 9-year-old might cause, you got 99 other girls to get that in line in whatever way. The reality is that's not what happens. The harm and the danger comes to the kid who's different, that that is not considered part of the norm, part of the mainstream, part of the dominant culture, all of that. So I don't know, there's lots to say. But what I do is try to legitimize those questions so that those folks can recognize that the dangers that they feel and imagine are just feelings and imagination. Let's talk about the realities. Your teachers, your educators, your administrators, when there's a problem student, they know how to take care of it. So we need to inspire the confidence of that school principal, for example, or a classroom teacher to be able to handle it. But right now, most of them get into a state of paralysis. And they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with the word transgender. They don't know what to do with a boy who might come to school in a skirt. They don't know what to do. So if they don't know what to do, they shut their mouths, they change the subject, they deflect, and they don't step in. If they don't step in, if that lack of confidence shows, the kids know it. They're like, oh, okay, there is something wrong with Johnny. So we'll take that up on the playground. We'll address that elsewhere. And you've got bullying and teasing that happens so young. The barrier is if they consider this conversation about gender, gender expression differences as sexuality. Oh, well, we can't talk about that with kids that young. Let's wait. You know, we'll talk about that in middle school. Well, by then, it's too late. Your kids already know. Like, they already know. You tease this kid for this reason. You bully that kid for that reason. And then you're going to come and tell them later, like, by the way, hey, you don't need to do that. It's not effective. I want those educators to be able to step in the room with the preschoolers, the kindergartners on up, and be able to talk about it. I've been in those rooms with kids. They're brilliant. Yeah. What the kids have to say is amazing.
Yeah. So how often do you get into schools to be able to talk to the administrators, teachers, principals? I mean, because there's a lot of that needs to be, because there is a lot of unknowns, and because of the unknowns, fear. A lot of fear-based stuff, you know, and so it's.
There's kind of two reasons that show up. One is a school has a gender diverse kid. They don't know what to do about it, but they want to step in, even though they're apprehensive. I get those calls. And then there's other schools where that situation may have happened and they've ignored it and tried to like hope it would go away, and the dissension really builds. And it plays out amongst the students, but often it's the parent community and the teachers, the adults who start to get really contentious. It is no fun for me to step into a school community where they've let it go too long and they want me to work some miracles.
Fix it now.
Yeah, that's really difficult. The ones that, you know, are apprehensive and are proactive, they're going to do so much better because they're willing to step in and start. So yeah, the work with schools is really picked up pretty significantly. It went screeching to a halt. Everything that I had scheduled was put on indefinite hold because of COVID. But you know, even now, more requests are coming in to do virtual work as people are trying to figure out how to keep moving.
Yeah.
In a different environment.
So, we're coming to an end here, but which is I would like to think is just the beginning. Um, hey, what would you tell like those parents right now who are just wondering, and or those about their children, or really concerned about their children, and um, because I know in Indian country, we have our people too. I mean, they're just um,
Hmm.
yeah. What do you tell the parents who are they see their child, you know, I don't know. What do you tell them? What do you share with them?
There's a lot to say there, but number one is your child is one of the most precious things on the planet, and who they are, who they innately are, is a work of beauty, and a creation to be honored and celebrated. So what happens when you see something that then might influence, um, one, it could be your concern for the safety of your kid. One Latinx mom said, when my 5-year-old said he was a girl and wanted to wear dresses, I could only think to beat him, because there's no room in my culture for that type of expression in a boy. And she was crying because she was ashamed, and she was doing something different by that point. But nevertheless, there's so many factors that come in, so many things that say, well, this is going to reflect on me as a parent. People are going to judge me for this as well. Um, Being able to recognize the gift that exists in that child. Um, Many people have said God doesn't make mistakes. And they say that again later, only they realize something quite different. Instead of saying, God doesn't make mistakes, you're a boy, and therefore you need to act like a boy. Later they say, God doesn't make mistakes. God gave me this child so that I could step up. Um, it is frightening to do. I have a daughter, she's 30 years old. I love her so deeply. If she came to me and said, I think I'm transgender, I want to, do whatever, I want to change my name, I would not be happy about it. Number one, I want my kid to have as the best life that she can. I don't want her hurt. I want her loved and accepted. I want her to belong. Um, I gave her her name. Like, don't change that. I can imagine all of the feelings that all of these other parents often have, but um, what do I want most for her? I want her to find her way in life, her path. I want her to be as authentic of a human being as she can. Um, and I need to show up. I need to be there. And I also don't need to worry about the end destination. It's not like there's a crystal ball. Not every kid that says, hey, I'm not really a girl, I'm a boy, is going to follow some gender transition path. They're just trying to articulate something. They're trying to say, hey, I'm observing a world full of gender, and there's some things that are associated with boys, there's things that are associated with girls that don't work for me. So instead of like trying to, put the halt on it, step in, make more room. And I want to just leave one last thought, and it's more of my own question that I would love to explore further with folks at some point, if that was of interest, which is many people that I encounter in white European centric communities, when they're talking about being transgender, they share about how there's other genders articulated and embraced in other cultures. And they often bring up the Native communities as having two-spirit people, and that they're revered and so on. And so uh, I know this as an intellectual thought, but I don't observe it. And I don't know to what extent that is pervasive throughout the indigenous communities in the US and elsewhere. I think once upon a time, that could have been the case. But colonization and all of that has, just been crushing to any number of cultures all across the planet. So, if I were to give some advice there too, I would say, wow, go check in about that. Tell me more. Tell me more about that. And if I have an iota of perspective to share, I will. But this isn't gender expansiveness in humans and who we are as people on the planet is not new. We've forgotten, we've crushed it, we've worked to destroy it. We can do it. We can do it a different way.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I totally agree. I mean, I'm just sitting here and listening to you, and I'm just seeing the parallels with the Native community, Indigenous community, and with your journey and your community and the trans, journey, and just that, and just the gifts, and I know Indigenous communities too. We saw it as a gift. There's those gifts there, and man, I'd like to continue this conversation.
I know we're probably over time. I'm not even paying attention, but there was a speaker that came from South America one year, and she spoke of a coastal community in Ecuador that she said approximately 1/3 of the people in that community identify in some way that we would consider transgender. They don't use that word, but they have place and belonging in their communities, and even language to describe themselves. If I'd even had one word to grab a hold of as a child that I could have said, hey, this is who I am. Here's this word. That means possibility. That means a pathway. So that was really, really impressive to hear. And those are not small numbers. 1/3 of people in this community is more gender expansive than what we might typically imagine. So that was pretty exciting to hear about.
Yeah, if you just had that one word, if you just had that one story, heard that story as a kid, that you could grasp, or that that song or dance, whatever it is, that you could have grasped onto, just those things. But here you are now, brother.
Oh, such a privilege to be here. I'm sorry I can't see everybody. Jolene hid out, so I'm just looking at you. Fortunately, you're easy on the eyes, so I appreciate that. And I want to thank everybody for having me, making some space for me to come.
Right on. Hey, I want to get you out there, with the people more, and just out there in the Native community, because we just need to be learn more and just be part of this this whole. And so, hey, everybody out there at the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour, here with Aiden Key, and my name is Gene Tagaban with the Native Wellness Institute. This is brought to you by the Urban Indian Health Institute, the Seattle Indian Health Board. And we just want to say thank you for joining in with us during this time. And all this is just with this moment. And I love these moments, and each one of these power hours, that's what it is. It's a moment in our story, and we're all here to tell you a story. And Aiden just shared his story with us, and let's get the story continue. And how can we be part of the story, that healing story for the people that we so much need out there. And so with that, have a great weekend. Wonderful. Konachish, and take care, be well, be gentle with yourselves, and be safe. All right. Thanks.